Hi, welcome to the channel. So today I'm reacting to a video from the channel Liveth for Evermore. This is the one-man Gurkha army, the stand of Sergeant Dipprasad Pun, September 2010. Let's get to it.
On the 17th of September 2010, a platoon from the 1st Battalion, the Royal Gurkha Rifles, was stationed at two patrol bases near the village of Rahim Kalay in the north of Helmand Province. At some point during the day, the bulk of the platoon departed the bases to secure a key road to the east, with two small detachments remaining behind to garrison the outposts. Tasked with holding the southernmost patrol base were four Gurkhas, among them Sergeant Dipprasad Pun, who, in the evening of the 17th, was on sentry duty on the roof of a two-storey compound that was at the centre of the base. Manning his post for several hours, Sergeant Pun soon began to hear some noises materialising from the other side of the main gate, and, as he later recalled, "I thought at first maybe it was a cow, but my suspicions soon built up, and I saw two Taliban digging to lay down an IED in front of our gate." Immediately, the sergeant called out for the two men to identify themselves, but instead of receiving a verbal response, bullets and RPGs began to hit the patrol base, as a significantly larger Taliban force appeared from out of the darkness. Realising the outpost was under attack, Sergeant Pun grabbed a nearby radio and informed his platoon commander of the unfolding situation, before turning his attention onto the enemy.
So good decision making. He got on the comms immediately to let the higher-ups know what was going on. And given the fact that the Taliban immediately responded to him with a coordinated RPG and rifle attack, most likely their main objective was not planting the IED. Their main goal, which is one of their tactics, was to use the IED as a lure and to get those soldiers into their predictable defensive positions so then they could attack and overrun the FOB.
As soon as I knew they were Taliban, I thought I was going to die, but as soon as I started firing, that feeling went away. I knew I had to do something before they killed me and my three comrades. I thought, before they kill me, I have to kill some of them. Picking up his SA-80, the Gurkha fired off a rifle grenade at the attacking enemy, prior to detaching a nearby general-purpose machine gun from its tripod and returning fire on the advancing Taliban fighters, who were moving forward from three directions.
So when he talks about a grenade rifle, he's referring to something such as an M203, which is what the US Army uses. If you know the name of the British Army version, then please drop it in the comments.
Within minutes, however, he had spent all of his machine gun ammunition, and so resorted to using a mix of grenades to disrupt the attack, including 6 phosphorus, 6 fragmentation, and 4 rifle grenades. Once these two had become expended, he picked up his SA-80 again and, moving from position to position, he continued to engage the enemy, some of whom managed to break through his line of sight and reached the compound. Looking for a way to get onto the roof, some of the insurgents began scaling up the building's mud walls, with one fighter reaching the top first and proceeding to rush the Gurkha.
Kukri knife.
Training his SA-80 onto the enemy fighter, Sergeant Pun shot and killed the insurgent, seconds before experiencing a weapon malfunction just as another Taliban fighter appeared on the roof. Ditching his rifle, the sergeant grabbed the nearby GPMG tripod and held it at the second insurgent, knocking him unconscious. Moments after, Sergeant Pun heard several more of the enemy attempting to climb up to the roof, who he pushed back by dropping a sandbag onto one and forcing the others to retreat when a claymore mine detonated.
Yes.
Eventually, after 17 minutes of heavy fighting, the enemy attack had collapsed and what was left of the Taliban force withdrew back in the direction they had come from. A short while later, British reinforcements arrived at the patrol base to strengthen its defences, where they found an exhausted Sergeant Dipprasad Pun still on the roof. Sergeant Pun later stated, "I thought there might have been around 20 to 30 Taliban fighters involved in the attack, but later locals told me it was probably around 15. I know I'm very lucky to be alive. I didn't think the attack would ever end, and I nearly collapsed when it was over. I did what I was trained to do, there wasn't any choice but to fight.
I guess he was saving his cookery knife for the main battle. So he actually comes from a long line of Gurkhas. His father was a Gurkha, and his grandfather was a Gurkha who actually earned or won the Victoria Cross during World War II. So I'm very curious about what his 3 soldiers were doing during this battle. Were they at some other location on the FOB? But to me it sounds like the FOB was pretty small. But he did all the right things. He responded appropriately when he first recognized a possible threat. He got on the comms to communicate with his superiors. He was able to adapt and overcome, and he was able to single-handedly repel this attack. I would expect nothing less from a Gurkha. And if you do actually want to learn more about Gurkhas, then why don't you check out this video right here. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. If a man tells you he's not afraid of dying, he's either lying or he's a Gurkha.